Now we're walking down our platform to our train that's going to take us south to Portofino. We're heading for the Italian Riviera. We'll be staying in the charming little town of Santa Margherita, which is right on the Ligurian coast of the northwest of Italy. Right on the beautiful Mediterranean Sea. The Italian trains, as all the trains in Europe, are extremely comfortable. Velour upholstery in first class, air-conditioned, so it's quiet and peaceful on board. You can even pull the seats together and form a double bed and lie down and take a nap if you wish. The trains are much less crowded in the off-season. In the summertime, you might want to make seat reservations on the train to make sure that you can sit down instead of stand for a couple hours, which is always possible. And it also helps to travel in first class rather than second class because first class is less crowded. We've enjoyed fine mountain scenery on our trip south to the Italian Riviera, and now we're experiencing our first sunrise in Santa Margherita. This is a beautiful small town right near Portofino. We decided to stay in Santa Margherita because it's just 3 miles away from Portofino, which is the main attraction of this coastline, and there's no hotels available in the tiny village of Portofino. But we discovered that Santa Margherita is a classic town in its own right. It's a bright little town full of light and color, which came into being originally with the merging of 2 small adjacent villages, and now it's formed one beautiful spread along the coastline. There's a charming waterfront park and promenade. The old orange-colored and brown-colored buildings are nestled right up against the harbor with their sidewalk cafes. There's lots of sailboats and sleek motorboats. There's even an ancient castle here. And there's a number of very fine resort hotels that you can enjoy in Santa Margherita. As you can see, the sunrise walk is particularly attractive. It's not often you can stroll out of your hotel's front door and enjoy this sort of a sunrise over a tranquil boat harbor. And when you have that opportunity, you should certainly wake up early and take advantage of it. And you can stroll back to your hotel by 7 a.m. for the breakfast call. There are numerous other attractive towns scattered along these 80 miles of coastline, but you'll find that Santa Margherita is one of the nicest, if not the nicest. Other places you might want to visit are Rapallo, just a few miles away, Lavagna, Sestri, the Cinque Terre, and La Spezia. And in just a minute, we'll be on our way to the crown jewel of the coastline, the village of Portofino. But first, let's take a moment to just look around us and enjoy this tranquil sunrise. It's very quiet and peaceful this early in the morning. The scooters and the trucks and buses aren't really out yet. There's just a few cars going by. We stayed at the Lido Palace Hotel, which is right here on this cute little pebble beach. The Lido Palace, with its beautiful golden facade lit up by the morning sunshine, is a fine spot to stay, and it fronts right on the main little bus terminal. They have very frequent bus service, and we quickly hop on one of these buses, our small Hawaii group of 10 people, and ride the short trip through Santa Margherita to our ultimate destination of Portofino. And I'm telling you, that is one of the best tourist values the savvy traveler can find any place in the world. You get one of the most incredible bus rides along this beautiful winding stretch of road hugging the coastline between Santa Margherita and Portofino. There's other more famous drives such as the Amalfi Drive. The drive in Pebble Beach, California is world famous. This drive ranks with any drive in the world. It's not a long drive, only takes 15 minutes to get from Santa Margherita to Portofino, which is another part of its charm. You're there before you know it. And you can go back and forth during the day several times, as we've done. This view of the coastal road from the water was taken from the boat, which also goes between Santa Margherita and Portofino, which is equally inexpensive. It's about $3 for the boat ride, and it gives you yet another perspective. Halfway there, you come across this tiny village of Paraggi. It's on the road that runs from Santa Margherita to Portofino, wending its way along gorges and ravines. This stretch of land, which lies between the Apennine Mountains and the Ligurian Sea, comprises the region of Liguria. And it's also referred to as the Riviera di Levante since it's east of Genoa. It's a region of rich green vegetation and multicolored fresco houses. The most famous and densely populated part of this region is the coastal belt, always prosperous on account of its original flora, but further enriched by the cultivation of olives, vines, and exotic plants. And now it's a world-famous capital of tourism, and you can begin to see why with this wonderful coastal beauty. This Riviera di Levante consists of three main sections: the Golfo Paradiso, the Golfo Tigullio, where we are now, and the Cinque Terre, that is to say the Gulf of Paradise, the Gulf of the Tigulians, and the Five Lands. Of these, the Tigullio, which extends from Portofino to Sestri Levante, is the most favored by international tourists. And so this region is very, very popular during the summertime, especially the little village of Portofino, which we're going to be arriving at in just a few moments. And you're about to see why it is so popular, because it is just so beautiful. Therefore, I'd recommend that you stay away during the months of July and August, because it is packed. This road is bumper to bumper. In August, it might take you 1 hour to drive the 3 miles if you go at the peak of the season, and also the hotels are fully booked, sometimes several years in advance during July and August. So it's simple. Come during March or April, as we're doing on this trip, or May, perhaps the shoulder season is fine. Or you might want to come during the fall. September and October is equally beautiful, as we arrive now in the little back streets of Portofino itself. This is the little parking lot during the summertime. There's no parking spaces, but at this time of year, no problem, especially when we're on our little city bus. And we arrive in town, and it's pretty early in the morning. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning. So the townsfolk are just starting their daily work activities. Here's a little tractor with some huge rocks. He's rebuilding a wall on the other side of the port. When you have a look at the sheltered cove and pretty buildings of this little hamlet, you'll see why it has become world famous. This is Dennis Callan for the Hawaii Geographic Society, taking you to Portofino, one of the most beautiful towns in Italy. We're right here along the Mediterranean coast in the Ligurian section of Italy, basically the Italian Riviera, and one of the most famous towns in the world, Portofino. It's a microcosm, a world unto itself. There's leisure to take in the blend of perfect maritime convenience and exceptional beauty that distinguishes Portofino. The natural small harbor is a sheltered cove near the rocky tip of a lushly overgrown promontory that protects the Gulf of Rapallo like a giant breakwater. Many of the villagers live in these houses that line the waterfront of the port. The first story is for shops and restaurants, and the upper floors are apartment houses. These buildings are mostly from the 18th and 19th century. And across this tiny little harbor on the other side, at the top of the hill, you'll find the Castle of St. George. It's open to the public every day from 9 to 5. And next to it is the Church of St. George. Back into the village center, you find a lot of nautical type activities. Sailors painting their little boats, fishermen fixing their nets, scuba divers preparing to go out to sea. In the summertime, the little harbor is filled to gridlock with the yachts of the rich and famous. But now in the off-season, the locals can row their little boats at will. Here's our small group of Hawaii travelers posing for a self-portrait with the scenic harbor town as a backdrop. Okay, let's climb the steps and go to the top of the mountain for an overview of Portofino. It's a very easy stroll up to the castle, up a staircase and along a paved footpath. And the castle is open to the public just about every day from 9 to 5. And from the castle you have a beautiful view down below, and there's some cats along the way. There's some houses up here. Some of the villagers do live in houses that are scattered on the hillside. But there are no roads at all up here, so all of their supplies have to be carried in and out by hand. This is a beautiful walk. Very pleasant uphill stroll. What a view. The castle just ahead of us was built to defend this area against the Turks a couple hundred years ago. And it still has the aura of a residential castle, for the caretakers actually live on the grounds of the castle. And from here you get this sweeping view of the harbor town. And across the way you see there's another pretty green hillside. There's a path that you can walk along, and that'll take you up to the Hotel Splendido, one of the most deluxe hotels in the region. And later in our next program, we'll be taking that stroll. But for now, we're enjoying the main stroll, which is on this side of the castle, the church, and the lighthouse. When you walk up the hill, you get this beautiful view of the village of Portofino. It's a beautiful sunny day. You can see the little harbor town in the background. It's only a 5 or 10 minute walk up the hill, so it's well worth it. Come on up and have a look at this scenic vista. Somehow the overall elements around you fit together in a perfectly harmonious whole. It's just the ideal picture postcard, and it seems too good to be true, but this is for real. This village really does exist. It's not some kind of a Shangri-La that's mythically set on this Ligurian coastline. It's been here for hundreds of years, and it will probably continue for hundreds more years, looking very much like it does today. Fortunately, it's protected as a National Historic Landmark. And despite the large crowds that come in and the yachts that pull up and moor their ships in the little harbor, it will be protected. And it will stay the same for quite a while. The only difference is in time of day and the season of the year. Again, if you're there in the summertime, it'll be largely populated with tourists, and you'll see a lot more people. But in the off-season, like now, you've got this entire path to yourself. The cypress trees look reminiscent of California and Monterey. And soon you reach the lighthouse at the end of the path. It's about a mile from the village up to the lighthouse at this point. And from the point, you get quite a sweeping view of the Ligurian coastline. The towns in the distance include Rapallo and Chiavari and Lavagna and Sestri. But prettiest and fairest of all is Portofino, and here you see why. It's been admired by poets and writers and artists for centuries. Even the architectural elements seem to have emanated from a poetic picture book. And there's several little side paths that deviate from the trail. You can go off and explore on your own. You can scamper to the top of the hill if you wish. There's some private farms in the neighborhood. They grow olives and various fruits here. And occasionally you'll come across some other strollers on this romantic way. Carved right out of solid bedrock, but it's quite safe, and it's not very strenuous. As you can see, most of this path is quite level as the trees glide on by, and you always have the views of the water shimmering down below, through tunnels bounded by hedges, lorded over by castles and palaces, quaint antique lanterns along the way, beautiful stone wall construction, and a very interesting cobblestone and flagstone pathway. Another view of the castle once again. We actually found this pathway so appealing and so wonderful that we came back the next day and did the walk all over again, just to make sure that it really was as beautiful as it seemed to be in our memory. And it got even nicer, particularly later in the afternoon as we're doing it now. It's a great spot to see Portofino from. There's a castle that you can visit, and you get an even better view from the castle. By all means, take the little sidewalk that goes up behind the village and look back down into the bay of Portofino. And you're just a few minutes away from the village, so after that invigorating walk, you can take your pick from among the many sidewalk restaurants here in town. There's some fairly elegant places, and there's some affordable budget places as well. So you take your choice and sit down at the table with the best possible view and enjoy yourself.